the game. You don't play to just play it. Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40! Can't wait! Let's go!
All right. It is Tuesday, another episode of the Big Three. Hope everybody's doing well. It's just Jake and myself once again tonight. Like we saw last week, we can still have a good time. Daniel Barry, see in the chat already what's going on, man. We got a lot to get into today. We're not going to waste a lot of time with the intros, but of course, got to ask my guy Jake, how you doing tonight?
Man, I'm doing great. Good football this week, even though the games didn't always look the best. There's still plenty to watch. Basketball's kicking into full gear. Baseball free agency is kind of starting to roll around here. Really excited for the show. Really excited for everything we have to talk about. The only bummer, we're getting to that point in the year where you can kind of count the number of weeks we have left in the regular season. It's not like October where you feel like you have months and months of football. But other than that, I'm doing great. How are you, Kyle?
I'm good. I talked about this on Cheap Seats yesterday that Gene has this running thing that my mood kind of goes with the Patriots season. I feel like I still got the same energy, even though the Patriots season has taken a dark turn.
It's pretty rough.
I'm sure we'll definitely get into that later on. But yeah, I'm good. It's like you said, the NFL season, like we miss it when it's gone, and then it's here, and it seems like it flies by.
Yep.
It is kind of a long season if you think about it, but I don't know, just the way it works.
No, it is. It is. Like there's 17 games instead of 16 that we've both grown up with, but yet by the time before you know it, like after Thanksgiving, it's just you get in December and it's like, man, we have to savor this stuff. It's going by too fast.
Yeah. I think especially like with Thanksgiving Day games, I feel like once those come around, that's when people are really like, wait, the playoffs aren't even that far away now.
Yep, exactly.
And then that's when I think it sinks in with people like, season is almost done.
Yep.
So, but yeah, I mean, we'll get into that. That's usually what we have the second half of the show for. We'll usually like to get started with some, other sports talk. So we might as well go ahead and get into our first story here. So the NBA had a game on the 9th between the Hawks and the Magic in Mexico City, which obviously brings up the topic of expansion. Because I believe Trae Young, who was in the game, said he'd love to see a team in Mexico City. I mean, travel-wise, it's not going to really be that big of a deal. Elevation will take some getting used to.
Absolutely.
Because like Denver has an advantage, but Mexico City, I believe, is like 4,000 feet more than Denver or something like that.
I think Mexico City is like 10,000, and like outside of Utah and Denver, no other team is like those are the only two teams above like the 4,000 threshold. Mm-hmm. And so if you're doubling that, that's definitely going to take a huge factor into everything. Travel, not so much. It's not going to be like going to Europe and everything, which is good, but the elevation definitely would play a factor.
Yeah, and I do think it's intriguing because I was watching the Celtics game last night, and Adam Silver was actually on the broadcast with Scalabrine and Mike Gorman. And he's like a really good interview as well. He kind of answers all the questions you throw at him.
He is.
And I definitely respect Adam Silver for that. But looking at expansion, could you see a day where the NBA has a team in Mexico City?
Could I see a day where it happens? Yes. Eventually, I could see it happening. Is it going to happen this next expansion cycle? No. Right, it's not going to happen. The NBA is ready for expansion. NBA hasn't had this much talent in the league, especially with the number of teams that they've had since the late 80s. Like, if you really go back and look at it, the late 80s was the last time there was this huge, big talent boom where so many players had so many good teams. And what did they do? They had a bunch of expansion to kind of spread out the wealth more or less. We're ready for it now, and it has to be Seattle and it has to be Las Vegas. Those are the two teams. You can maybe convince me a different team, maybe on the eastern side of the country outside of Vegas, but Seattle 1,000,000% deserves that team. And another U.S. team is probably going to get it. You could make the argument maybe Vancouver, British Columbia, could get another team. So it's going to be a while. And at which point is the league going to be good at 34 or 36 teams? It's kind of hard to say. But I could see Mexico City being in the next potential wave of expansion teams. I don't see a team necessarily wanting to relocate to Mexico City, but not this go round. It's Seattle and Vegas are ready for it, and the markets are ready for it too. With how the NBA has been ready for Seattle. The Seattle fans have been ready ever since the Oklahoma City left or the
Mm-hmm.
Thunder left. But they've been prepping Vegas. They've had events there. There's already other pro sports teams there, so Vegas is ready for it. And now NBA is just kind of priming Mexico City to see how much of a fan base can they actually get in to draw, not just a one-off, uh, regular season game, but a whole 42 or 41 home games plus potential playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, Steven, see in the chat, what's up? Obviously, you guys in the chat, let us know your opinion as well on Mexico City as an option for the NBA. So when I look at Mexico City, I think it probably does happen. I do agree with you. Seattle and Vegas should be first, especially Seattle. It's been far too long. Hated when they left. So that one's the obvious one. Vegas only because of kind of the market it's become for sports. It only makes sense for the NBA to go there. Now you did bring up Vancouver. I'm also one of those who thinks that Vancouver should probably get a team again. They had the Grizzlies. They went to Memphis. Whenever I see Vancouver, it just seems like kind of like an Americanized Canadian city. And I didn't understand how the Grizzlies didn't work there the first time. Maybe they weren't just ready for it. I mean, Vancouver has an MLS team. I don't know if they have a Canadian Football League team, but they have sports teams in Vancouver. So I think they would work again. In terms of like other cities where it might be viable, I don't know. I feel like any way they can get it where probably like Memphis moves to the Eastern Conference, because I still can't wrap my head around them being in the West. And maybe even New Orleans.
Yep,
Seems
absolutely.
a little odd for them to be in the West as well. Whatever it takes to make those teams shift to the East, I'm here for it. And if you get Seattle and Vegas, that would probably push those two over. Obviously, whenever there's expansion, there's always the detractors who will come out and say, well, you're just watering down the product. How much is too much? That might be another question. Like, how many teams would it be too much in your league? All these leagues are like 30, 32, and right now that kind of seems right. But all right, Steven said Nashville.
Nashville could work. I mean, there would be two Tennessee teams, but Nashville and Memphis are super far apart from each other. Yeah. Like, it's a long, long state, and Nashville does have, like, the Titans are there. I'm pretty sure there's a hockey team that's in there. I'm terrible.
Yeah, the Predators.
Hockey. The Predators are there. Big sports town. The University of Tennessee is really close as well. So they could support it, absolutely. It's just, or would there be other better cities compared to these other ones? But Nashville is one. You hear it too with baseball. Like, Nashville is one for, if baseball were to expand, then Nashville could get one of those cities, or one of those teams, rather.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is actually a good point from Steven, because Nashville, I guess for me being in the Atlanta area, I've heard a lot about how Nashville is coming up and it's becoming like a destination city.
It's a cool place, man.
Yeah, I think I've been through Nashville. I haven't really experienced Nashville.
No, it's cool. I went there last year for a concert, and it was in the Titans Stadium. And it's a cool place. If you want to like party, there's it's not like a Vegas strip, but there's definitely a party atmosphere that could attract, big guys that say, hey, you want to go to where there's clubs and whatnot to have fun? There's definitely that in Nashville. Like, there's a lot of fun you can have in that town, cool things to do. So definitely it would be a good place for it, for sure.
We got Saijin, Jory, what's going on? We're talking about the possibility of Mexico City being a destination for the NBA, as well as other places that they could expand to if they wanted to. Jory want to go to Nashville. I mean, look, when I've seen, like, when the draft was there, wasn't this past year or like a year ago, it seemed like a cool spot. I wouldn't be mad at it if the NBA went there. I do think, like you said as well, I feel like in previous years when you talked about NBA expansion, it was always like, well, the product isn't there. But now you look around. the young talent really good, and I think the talent being spaced out the way it is. Sure you have your favorites, but outside of like 3, 4 teams, there's a lot of parity and unpredictability that I think the league could probably capitalize on.
For sure. For
So
sure. The
yeah.
league could capitalize on it. And also, the other thing too is not only do we have all these young players, but players are staying good for longer periods of time with the
Mm-hmm.
way that technology just involves for health science and people taking better care of themselves. These players are staying way healthier, playing way longer than what we've experienced before. So their primes are just lasting 5, 6 years longer than what they were even 10 years ago. So that's just going to make the league more condensed as far as the talent goes.
So John threw out some other cities. Well, Vancouver and Vegas we talked about. Throw out Louisville, Kentucky, Virginia Beach, Kansas City. Kansas City. I mean, after talking with Chase last night, him beating Kansas City, they don't have a basketball team. Yeah, Kansas City would be an interesting market as well. You capitalize on what the Chiefs have built there. Seems like a great sports town. I wouldn't be mad at that either. I mean, you get Kansas City and Nashville at the same time. You got Battle of Barbecues, It could work. Could be a built-in rivalry. Louisville, Kentucky. See, when I think Louisville, I think of a college town.
Same here. I've never been to Louisville or anywhere really near it. I've just driven through Kentucky once. So it's hard for me to gauge how big it is. I will say that Virginia Beach could work out pretty well. The only thing that's really tough with Virginia Beach is the traffic getting there. There's only there's a tunnel. It's a 2-lane road, so traffic there is already pretty bad. Kind of like what the Rays have, where traffic getting there could be bad. So if it was on the other side of that, it could work. And I only know that because I've been to Virginia Beach a few times. As far as Myrtle Beach goes, great for vacation.
Yeah.
They have a hard time supporting the Charlotte Hornets. I have a hard time seeing them supporting a second team in that area.
It seems like John just trying to get them on a beach. Virginia Beach, Myrtle Beach.
Hey, man, those beaches are great, but Myrtle Beach is the best. Of all those ones I've been to, Myrtle Beach is the best.
Yeah, I've been there a few times. I like that area. Anthony said DC will get the money, but that traffic is crazy.
No, they got the Wizards. They have a hard enough time getting that place to sell out.
Yeah. All right. So I mean, got a lot of suggestions in the chat. Like we said, we already see Seattle and Vegas being it, Mexico City, Vancouver, and I think we both like Nashville.
Mm-hmm. I think that when this next run comes around, I think Mexico City could work. Vancouver and Nashville are probably going to be the 3 leading contenders. Vancouver, from what I remember, is the only reason they left and went to Memphis was they had really bad ownership, and he just kind of sold the team and pretty much did the city dirty. But it wasn't as big of a deal as it was when Seattle went to Oklahoma City. So I could see them being there, and then it would be cool. The NBA could then market it as we're growing internationally, where we have a team now, a second team in Canada, and their first team in Mexico being a big deal there.
John said, "What about bringing back Seattle?" Yeah, we already assume that's going to happen. Damien said Hawaii. I think that would be a nightmare.
Yep,
logistically to have teams traveling over there would be cool. I'm sure the players would love it, get to go to Hawaii, but yeah, I don't know. I see kind of the troubles that Hawaii has in college football.
Yep.
And I just feel like with the NBA, probably wouldn't be as bad because, you're not dealing with kids in school or anything like that. But yeah, I don't know about Hawaii. Kerm said Nashville's in Tennessee, so what happens to the Grizzlies? We talked about that. They're 2 opposite sides of the state. Only because Nashville is a booming city. That's why we thought they would be viable. I guess if you're thinking about a state like Tennessee, you'd probably ask, should they get 2 teams within that state? I mean, I guess if you want to ask that. John said, what about a team overseas like Paris?
Yeah, it's too tough. That again, that's a logistical nightmare.
Yeah.
And
Damien said Puerto Rico is interesting.
That could work.
Yeah. I mean, Puerto Rico is basically part of the U.S. at this point. I feel like it's only a matter of time before some team taps into that. Probably baseball first.
Baseball would be first.
Baseball would make too much sense, but then again, baseball at times doesn't really take the obvious.
For sure.
So I like Puerto Rico. John said St. Louis. Yeah, I think St. Louis, Kansas City.
One
I
of
feel
those
like one
two
of those
teams
should
could
get
get
one.
it. Exactly. And as far as earlier for Hawaii, the only pro team I could see working in Hawaii would be baseball, because you could schedule a 3 or 4 game series,
Right.
and the travel isn't necessarily stuff where you're going bouncing back across the country. Otherwise, it's from the West Coast. I think it's like 3 time zones from like LA to Hawaii. I think it's 3. So if
I think
you're
so.
and then so if you're going from New York to Hawaii, that's like 7. That's too
Yeah.
many. That's too tough.
I mean, the overseas stuff, like, NFL's kind of teased it.
Yeah.
I just
I don't like
I
it.
think it's cool for one-offs, like how the NBA did a Mexico City game. If you do a Paris game or whatever, I think that works. In order to expand there, it feels like you'd have to go multiple destinations over there to make it worthwhile. Because let's say you're the Lakers or something and you travel to Paris to play one game, and then of course you probably don't play the next night, but then you're traveling back. Could be a little weird. I don't know.
No, if there were to be a team in any sort of team that's permanent in Europe, they would have to schedule. It would be multiple teams. It'd be a division in Europe, and then a team would come and kind of play the round of all the
Yeah.
teams in Europe, and then fly back home. And it's just a nightmare. If the NFL really wants long term football in Europe, just start the NFL Europe League again. That was
Right.
there in the late '90s, 2000s. Just open that up again, and the fans will come up. They'll
Yeah.
show up.
John says home to the Steelers, Penguins, and Pirates. Pittsburgh just needs an NBA team to house all 4. I mean, you get a built-in rivalry with Philadelphia. Sure. Yeah, I feel like you don't really hear about Pittsburgh for the NBA for whatever reason.
Maybe it's because they're a little more or less spoiled with they've had good sports teams for the majority. I mean, the Pirates have been rough for a while, but the Steelers and Penguins have really good history. So maybe it's just like, do they need a sports team? Because they're pretty spoiled with the luck that they've had over the past 30 years.
Damien said, why not put another team in Canada? We said Vancouver. Only other city I can really think of is maybe Montreal. Outside of that, I don't know if there's any other options. But yeah, we agree another Canadian team would be fine. Plus, I was listening to NBA radio, and apparently Raptors fans aren't happy with how the league's marketing them. They feel left out. Which, whatever. We'll save that because we will talk about some NBA early season observations, and I have something about the Raptors in that one.
Let's do it.
All right. But before that, we got Mike Malone. Mike Malone just got a contract extension, makes him one of the highest paid coaches in the league, if not the highest. I can't really remember the numbers, but looking at him, is he the best coach in the league right now? I mean, yes, we have Popovich. We get that. But Popovich, I feel like, is like his own category because he's just the guy. But Popovich's on his way out. Is Mike Malone, outside of Popovich, the best coach in the league?
For me, it's a pretty easy answer. The answer is no, and no disrespect to Mike Malone. I feel like anytime you talk bad about the Nuggets or any of his team or him, he's going to take it real personal. So,
Right.
Mike, if you're listening, I apologize. I have a ton of respect for you. And also, like, Greg Popovich is not quite like the Bill Belichick, where the game's kind of passing him by and he's living off of legacy. Like, he's still a great coach, and we can debate on Bill Belichick and all of that. But, like, even if you were to rank him today, like, I don't know, Mike Malone's still a top 5 coach. I'd put him in the top 5 easy. But there's a lot of other coaches that I really like. That I really like what they're doing. Gut reaction is for Miami. He's just the guy. He takes good talent and he makes them better. The Nuggets, for a lot of years up until this past year, really felt like they were kind of struggling. They weren't living up to their potential. I know Jamal Murray had all those injuries, and that plays a big factor into it because he's a really good and a really important player. But it's also like, dude, you got Jokic. Like, it's really hard to say you're undeniably the best coach in the league when you have the best player in the league, hands down the best player, and somebody who is not just the best player, but raises the floor of everybody else. Like when Phil Jackson had Kobe Bryant and Shaq, they were the best players in the league, but they weren't necessarily the raisers that everybody else did. That's kind of what Tim Duncan did for a lot of people. He kind of raised everybody else. And Steph Curry as well. When you have guys that just make everybody around you so much better and make things so much easier, of course you're going to look like a genius. And so, is he the best coach? No. Is he top 5 coach? Easily. I'm trying to think off the top of my head where I would rank him. It's probably even top 3 at this point because I feel like he does a pretty good job. But best coach, not for me. Not currently, at least.
Okay. So now that does bring up an interesting little side conversation. So I guess we'll play Mike Malone versus whatever. And we'll kind of see where he kind of filters in.
Okay, let's do it.
So obviously you say Mike Malone or Popovich. We're both taking Popovich.
Probably. I mean, if we're talking this year, I might give a little bit to Mike Malone just because Popovich is kind of. I mean, it's hard because I don't want to disrespect Popovich.
Mm-hmm.
He's a great.
Actually, you know what? Well, like I said, I probably should have kept the same rules. We'll keep
him out because he's also just kind of having fun with a brand new toy in Wemby,
right?
And he's just like, hey, this is really fun. I'm just going to go with it. So yeah, let's take him out.
So let's go Mike Malone or Steve Kerr.
Okay, that's a really good comparison because both of these dudes have had really good players on their team. Like Steve Kerr went in, and we know that he really helped change the Warriors from the last run that they did. But he also had a team that was really complete and ready. Like we had Curry, Thompson, Draymond. Then he gets Durant. You had Iggy. I'm probably going to lean towards Kerr, but at the same time, you have to look at those times where Steve Kerr's been out of games. Where we had that was like 5 years ago. We had that back injury.
Mm-hmm.
They were just as good. I can't remember who the assistant coach was that filled in. He went to Sacramento for a couple of years.
That was Mike Brown.
It was before Mike Brown, but there was someone else who did it too, and I can't remember his name. But like, they're not these great coaches, but they kept on winning.
Luke Walton. Luke
Walton. That's who it was. And Luke Walton got fired from Sacramento because it just didn't work out. And there's been times where Steve Kerr is famously like passed the clipboard to his players to say, "Hey, you go ahead and do it. Like you run the team." So there's a little bit of like, well, if you have this great team, but I'm probably still going to give the edge to Kerr. But Mike Malone is still a good coach, but I'd probably go Kerr.
Okay.
And that's right. He was fired from the Lakers. Thanks, Greg. I got that mixed up.
Mike Malone or Nick Nurse?
Oh, man. I really like Nick Nurse. I really like what I saw in that finals run that they had with Kawhi. Mm-hmm. I thought his adjustments were ingenious. The way that he did the 1-4 box defense when the Warriors were really wounded was really smart. But he also lost the locker room in Toronto pretty quick. One of his top assistants went to Indianapolis and got fired really quick as he lost the locker room. And I don't really like what the Raptors have done. They feel like they haven't had the best roster construction. Yeah. Like they just have their whole roster is just like 6-7 wings.
Mm-hmm.
But when they had a complete roster, he was one of the best coaches in the league. But I'm still going to give it to Malone. I'm still going to give it to the guy that won it. And that if Jamal Murray was healthy the past 2 years, definitely has a stronger postseason run.
Okay. I think so far I agree with you on both of them. Mike Malone or Spoelstra? That's
Spoelstra. For me, Spoelstra is the best coach in the league. And I know like the Heat aren't, a lot of this has to do with last year. The Heat right now they're 6-4. So they're about kind of what we'd expect. But last year, what I saw in the playoffs and what he's historically been able to do with players and that, again, Heat culture, I can't make fun of it anymore because of how good they did in the playoffs. For me, he's the best coach in the league is Spoelstra.
All right. I mean, John wants to ask it. This was the guy I was going to get to, but Mike Malone or Ty Lue?
Man. This is tough. There are a lot of good coaches in the league. Like, we're playing this exercise. I'm like, there's a lot of good coaches. Because Ty Lue has done a lot of good stuff. He when his players get hurt, he still gets guys to show up. I'm still going to give it to Mike Malone. I still think he's probably the better coach. But I got to give a lot of respect to Ty Lue because he puts up with a lot of crap in with the Clippers, with all the injuries, with the rest and all that. He just comes out, he gets his guys to play. But right now they're 3-6, I think it is. So they're not off to a great start with this Harden deal. But I'm going to give it to Mike Malone.
Okay. I think one last name unless the chat can come up with another one. And this is a guy who I don't even know if he gets a lot of credit, but Mike Malone or Rick Carlisle.
Oh, that's a really good one, and I feel like if the Mavs don't, if the Heat don't implode in the 2011 Finals and the Mavericks win that, we look at him completely different because that one championship has kind of really changed how we feel about him. Everything he did with Dallas after that was kind of meh, not really super impressive. But when you watch, it's just there. You just have a ton of respect for Rick Carlisle. But until he can make another deep postseason run, I'm going to give it to Mike Malone. Ton of respect for Carlisle, but I'm going to give it to Mike Malone.
Okay. I just feel like Carlisle doesn't get brought up a lot, and I do think he's pretty consistent.
He
outside
is.
of a couple of years in Dallas, but I believe he's in Indiana now. So they're definitely a team on the come up as well. I mean, another name. No, I don't even think that's a conversation. I was gonna say like Jason Kidd, but that's obviously Mike Malone.
No, Mike Malone easy.
I mean, those are the coaches that automatically popped in my head. Like I said, Chad, if there's another coach you could think of.
What about your guy in Boston?
John had a good one. Monty Williams.
Ooh. Oh, man. I might take Monty. And part of it's just because I love the dude, because he's it's so easy to root for Monty Williams. And I can't believe that. Yeah, I'm going with Monty on that one. Monty's a guy that I would want to play for and could get me to like if I'm exhausted and even in training camp or practice, I know I could like bust my butt for Monty Williams easily. So I'll take him.
Okay. I mean, I love Monty. I might take Mike Malone slightly over him, but I'm a big Monty Williams guy as well. James said I'll take Mike over Billy Donovan right now. I'm sure a lot of Bulls fans would.
Yep.
Taylor Jenkins, now we're not having that conversation because that's Mike Malone. I mean, Taylor Jenkins has had a decent start, but this year is obviously going to hurt him a little bit. But you have to think about the context of not having John Morant, no Steven Adams, so you can't really put that on him. Quinn Snyder.
I love Quinn. He's a great coach. He's really intense, but right now there's no way their resumes match up. There's no way their resumes match up. So I guess if we look at it, that he's a top 3 coach in the league right now. Like,
right.
For a lot of things we've done, he's a top 3 coach. It's Kerr, it's Spoelstra, and then it's like Monty and him are kind of they're pretty close there. So not too shabby.
Yeah, it's like Monty, him, Ty Lue, Nick Nurse. I guess however you want to put those 4, I wouldn't really argue with.
Yeah, you can make an argument. It's better to do it in like tiers, where tier 1 is Spoelstra and Kerr, and then the second tier are the guys we just mentioned.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not even a big Nick Nurse guy, but I do have to give him credit where it's due. He kept the Raptors relevant. I hate him on the sideline because he's always complaining about stuff, and he just I can't stand him, but I can't disrespect the results from him. I will say. And he's having a good start in Philly, even though.
No, Philly's playing fantastic. They're doing really well.
Okay, David asked Mike Malone or Mike Brown. I guess that's a good way to
for me, it's Mike Malone. And I have a ton of respect for Mike Brown, but I've seen Mike Brown flame out and get fired way too many other times from other talented rosters with talented superstars. And Mike Malone, he may not have as much pizzazz as Mike Brown does, but he's gotten way better results than Mike Brown has. So I'm taking Mike Malone easy on that one.
Yeah, I'm taking Malone. I mean, Mike Brown is definitely, I guess, rebuilding his image with what he's doing in Sacramento.
He's gotten so much better with Sacramento.
But yeah, you got to take Mike Malone over him.
Yeah, I'll admit I didn't like the Mike Brown hire when Sacramento did the hire because of his past failings and how he's done in the before. I was like, I don't really like Mike Brown. It switched on me. I'm a much bigger fan of him now. But to put him up with these other guys, he's not there yet. Win a playoff series, and then you can get into that realm.
I agree. All right. I mean, chat. You guys had some good suggestions.
Good, man. Yeah, this is good. What about your guy, Kyle?
I mean, Joe Mazzulla is the guy for me. No, I'd say Mike Malone. A lot of people don't like Joe Mazzulla. I actually think from what I've seen from him this year, he looks like a guy who's actually learned from last year. He looks like he has a better command of, his rotation. He seems like he knows more about what's going on in the situations and when to call timeouts or when to whatever. But obviously, he's gonna have to prove it in the playoffs because a lot of people put them coming up short last year on him. And look, he was put in a situation in probably the worst way possible. And I think he's just developing his coaching style. So definitely not there yet, but we'll see. John says, "Come on, ask about Doc Rivers. He's not an active coach, and even if he was, I would take Mike Malone over."
Yeah,
Doc Rivers.
Sorry, Doc Rivers' whole legacy got completely saved by that one Celtics run they had, which was a great run. Don't get me wrong, but after that, I've seen Doc Rivers just flame out way too many times.
Yes. Adam said the Rockets are contenders, guys. I said this before the season. Love what they're doing. Like I said, we'll say that for our early season observations. John, Tom Thibodeau might surprise some people this year. We could obviously say that for early season as well. So before we get to those early season observations, a quick word from the network.
What's up, everybody? It's Control Simpson with Wire to Wire Sports Podcast, where we're going to cover all things breaking news, sports related. We're going to preview games, and we're also going to give you our reaction to the games that have happened before. You can catch us on Wednesdays from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. And if you miss us there, no worries. You can also catch us on Roku with Northeast Streaming Sports Productions from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m.
Hey, and listen, if you're not into all sports and just NFL, we have Sideline to Sideline. That's on Thursday nights from 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to 8 p.m. We'll break down the NFL week, the Thursday night game, and we'll preview all NFL action.
And if you're like me and college football is your fix, tune in every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. for Coast to Coast College Football pregame show. We'll review the previous week's action, the day's biggest games. We'll give you our pick'ems, and we'll even give you some teams that are on upset alert.
And if you don't catch us live, you can download us on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen to your podcast. We do also have a YouTube station, Wire to Wire Sports Podcast. Thanks for tuning in.
All right, we're back. So now let's go ahead and get into some early season observations from the NBA. I'll let you start with one, and then we'll kind of go back and forth for a couple.
Yeah, the first one is the Nuggets look fantastic. I know that there's an injury concern with Jamal Murray, where I think he's going to be out for the rest of the month. That's a big concern. I remember I was driving home, and the alert came up on my phone with covering the directions, and I saw, Jamal Murray feared to miss injury, and I thought it was the end of the season, and I about had a panic attack. Even though the Nuggets aren't my team, I was gutted and then relieved that it wasn't a season-ending injury. But the Nuggets they continue to impress me. Jokic is the best player in the league. He took the belt last year from Giannis and is defending it. And when they're at full strength, they look pretty unstoppable, especially in the West. So for me, there's no championship hangover. They brought back their core guys, and they seem like they're ready to defend their championship. And they feel like they're kind of upset that everyone else is talking about the Lakers and the Celtics and Dallas and Boston, Milwaukee. No one's talking about Denver, and they seem to be taking that personally. And I like that. I like that they have that fire, that edge. And I'm all for it. I think they're 8-2 on the season. Yeah, they're 8-2, and they look fantastic. So that's my first takeaway is that there's no slowdown in Denver.
Okay. John said Knicks and Magic are fun to watch this year. Timberwolves Fool's Gold. We'll talk about the Timberwolves part here. The Knicks, I will say, because I just watched them play the Celtics last night, they are fun to a point. I still cannot stand watching Julius Randle on a basketball court. It is brutal watching that guy take away from Brunson or even Grimes, who's the guy that they held on to without putting him in the Donovan Mitchell trade. He looks like a pretty good sharpshooter, which I could appreciate. Mitchell Robinson is a good energy guy down low, but anytime I see Randle bringing the ball up, or late in the shot clock, I see him out around the three-point line, I'm like, this possession's going to die. And it usually does. So that's the only thing that's holding me back with the Knicks. And I was watching the Raptors as well. They played the Celtics like the game before. And it came to me that the Knicks play what some might say is a boring brand because they're like really defensive and they play kind of slow. But I think they are fun to watch. The Raptors are just plain boring. to watch. I cannot stand watching Raptors Celtics games at this point. Like, Scotty Barnes and Siakam. Because talked about before, they have too many guys who are the same. And just like when Randall's bringing the ball up, I can't stand to see Siakam bringing the ball up either. It's trust me, if you have not watched the Raptors, the next time your team plays the Raptors, I guarantee if you watch it, you'll sit there and be like, why are they still an NBA team at this point? Like, everybody talks about the Bulls need to blow it up. The Raptors should have blown it up probably 2 years ago, and they really need to blow it up now. So I guess that's my first observation. You got another one?
Yeah. The 76ers, like, it's a total addition by subtraction. They got rid of James Harden. They got rid of that big question mark, the looming BS that was there. They look really good, and Tyrese Maxey is turning into a legitimate superstar. I know, I'm looking on Pro Basketball Reference. He has 9 games played, but 28 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, and his efficiency is 50% from the line, or 50% from the field, 43 from 3, and 93 from the free throw. Like 90, 50, 40. That's like, people freak out about triple doubles, which, is fair to some. I don't get invested in some. 90, 50, 40, that's what gets me like really excited. When people have that kind of efficiency, again, we're 9 games in, those numbers are that efficiency is probably going to drop, but he's been incredibly impressive, and I really like what they've done. And I think that getting rid of Harden and freeing up the offense has really helped them out. And again, it's hard to get to buy into the Philly, like the hype train, because they've disappointed for so long. I mean, they haven't made this iteration with Joel Embiid, hasn't made the conference finals yet. They've only made it to the second round, but this is the best that they've looked in a long time. And I think that I think losing Harden and letting Tyrese really start to cook and become his own player is going to pay dividends. And they're, I don't know, maybe a 3-team race in the East. We were so so convinced it was a 2-team race in the East, and now I think it's a 3-team race with Philly looking really good.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think as a Celtics fan, I do view the Sixers as more of a threat this year because of Harden not being there. This could kind of tie over to the Clippers. Like, anytime I see Harden on the team at this point in his career, I'm not taking them seriously, because he doesn't seem like a guy who wants to put in the work to win, and that's why he keeps bouncing around, because when he sees the situation get too tough, he automatically wants out.
He's a quitter. So, he doesn't have the grind in him. He comes into camp out of shape. He plays himself into shape. Like, it's just, he doesn't have that drive that we've seen with Kobe and Michael and LeBron. And the sad thing is, James Harden had the talent to be one of those guys. You look at some of those seasons in Houston with the scoring and the assists, like, those are historic seasons, but because his mindset just hasn't been there, you can't take him serious. And he's easily, for me, the biggest playoff least clutch player, I guess is the word. There's a better word for it, but least clutch player of all time. Playoff meltdown. Like, there's no debate who's number one. It's not Karl Malone anymore. It's James Harden.
Yeah. My next observation kind of goes with Damien's comment, because he says, question, do y'all think this in-season tournament is really necessary? I feel like it's just stupid and a waste of time. The NBA season's already long. So, even with the All-Star game. I could see where that might be a question if it added to the season. The fact that it doesn't, I'm perfectly fine with it. Like I said, Adam Silver was on the broadcast. I think Scalabrine asked him about the in-season tournament and like what he's been hearing from players and fans. And what he said is kind of how I feel. He said, like, European players, they don't care because they're used to in-season tournaments. And then he said a lot of the American-born players like it because it kind of breaks up the monotony of the regular season.
Right.
It just for it's 8 or so games. It's a little different. You're getting different courts, which Adam Silver said some court designs might be revisited. I guess it'll be the red courts since JJ Redick hates those so much. But I think for the most part, the courts do look kind of cool.
It's like 2/3 look really good. There's some, and like the Portland Trailblazers has some red in it, but that one is legit. There's some that are terrible. There's some that are awful. I think the Charlotte Hornets probably have one of the better ones with that teal color that's in there. But then again, the Charlotte Hornets just have cool colors in general. It's kind of hard to mess that up. But the Pelicans, that court is embarrassing. I get that there's Mardi Gras, and everything for the colors, but it's terrible. That's embarrassing.
Which, I mean, look, it was just a test, and the fact that Silver has acknowledged that some of the courts might get a redesign, I think that might bring some intrigue into next year as to
for sure
who gets a redesign, what do they look like. So yeah, I don't think it's unnecessary. I think it's a great way to break up the season. I think it's a great way to maybe expose some fans to younger teams and younger players, because there's a good chance that maybe a team that isn't an NBA contender wins the in-season tournament, or maybe one of the better teams wins it. Either way, I don't care. But as long as the players buy in, I think fans will see it as a viable option. But obviously, if players turn off from it, then fans will just follow. But I like it. I've liked it so far. The games have been competitive, and I just think it's just going to continue that way. So I like it, even though Damien, you may not. Maybe it's something that grows on you, because a lot of people said the same thing about the play-in, and now I think the majority of NBA fans like the play-in.
Well, the play-in's awesome.
Awesome. So I think this is just the same things. Because it's the first season, you're a little hesitant, but it'll grow on you.
No, it'll grow, and I think it's a good thing. Again, it breaks up the season, adds some extra pizzazz, gives more people to watch in early November. And look, a lot of us, we just wanted to see how it was going to operate. It's the same thing with the playing tournament. Before it was announced, I'm like, I don't know how this thing's going to look. I don't know how I feel about it. Once I saw it, it clicked. This hasn't clicked quite as big, but it's definitely the right move. And I like it. I think it's fun.
Yeah.
I have no complaints there.
Like, I want to see the first team that wins it, when they get the little NBA Cup, I guess they're calling it. Like, what's the celebration like? How big are they going to go for that? That I can't wait to see that part. Adam said, I hope the Pacers beat the Sixers tonight. Haven't seen the Pacers play, but their roster is nice. I will say I've seen the Pacers play a couple of times. Offensively, they're great to watch. Defensively is a bit of a question mark. They will let up some points, but they will also score a lot. So it should be a fun game, because the Sixers can score as well, especially with Maxey being unlocked the way he has been. Damien said the tournament would be interesting if it was a charity tournament to help community and not a tournament just to give players extra cash. Well, I mean, technically,
maybe it could be a 1-to-1. Maybe it could be like they do a matching or something, because the players should get some compensation, so there's some skin in the game. Otherwise, it's the All-Star game, and they're just like, do I really want to bust my butt for a game where if I get hurt, it screws the team over and I don't get paid for it? There's no extra incentive for it. So charity would be good, but make it like a 1-to-1 match or something like that. That could be fun.
Yeah. And plus, I feel like the way, the NBA is and their community outreach stuff, a lot of these players do kind of put the work in within the community. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. Like, we see LeBron all the time. I feel like this past offseason we've seen a lot from Jaylen Brown in the community. So that connection's there, and some players will probably take the money and do it that way. So I'm not that worried about that part of it. Like I said, if it was just a charity type thing, some players wouldn't care, wouldn't take it seriously.
For sure.
You have any other ones?
Yeah, there's a couple. I think like a lot of people are getting the Timberwolves. It's too early to tell on the Timberwolves. I have a hard time seeing this roster as constructed being legitimate and being a team that can really do a lot of damage. And I'm just going to say, like, I'm not trying to be a hater. I just don't buy into it. Last season, the top two teams in the West were the Utah Jazz and the Portland Trailblazers about this time, about end of November into December. And they both missed the playoffs and were both pretty bad teams. So some of these teams are going to fall off. I think Minnesota's going to be one. I think Houston is probably going to be one of those teams that falls off. They have a really good coach. I think they have a lot of talent. But I just think that the season's going to get kind of long, kind of arduous for all these young guys, and they're going to peter out a little bit. The team that I'm not that I don't think is going to fall out is the Thunder. I think Oklahoma City can make a strong case for being a top 4 team in the West.
Mm-hmm.
I think Chet's been showing up. That he was worth the number 1 overall pick last year. He was worth the wait. He's looking really good. They have a ton of talent. They obviously have SGA, who is probably a top 10, top 15 at worst player. They have a great coach. So I think that team is definitely on the right track and is probably vying for home court advantage in the first round.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at the Timberwolves, the part you get to look at is they're really good at home. I think they're undefeated at home. Their only losses have been on the road. That's going to be something I want to see as the season goes on, because if they're really good at home and are a terrible road team, they'll probably end up like they were last year. I think last year they were like a 41-41 type of team. And maybe that's their ceiling. I mean, it's a great start for them, but if they end up as a 500 team, then you're just looking at another year in the play-in. So it's wait and see with the Timberwolves for me. I agree with you, Oklahoma City. I bought into them past couple of years, and now seeing Chet with the group that's already kind of established something, now we're seeing like the full potential of Oklahoma City. I guess it'll just be whether or not Chet holds up, since this is technically his rookie year.
Holding your breath, because he's bulked up, but he's still skinny.
Yeah.
It's not what he was last year, so there is concern for that for sure.
John's asking, are the Suns in trouble? I
was going to ask you, Kyle. I was going to say, which team is in more trouble, or are you more worried about the Suns, the Lakers, or the Warriors?
Oh,
because we could kind of get the Clippers out, because none of us took the Clippers really serious. But like for teams, we all thought that these would be like legitimate teams to make it good postseason runs. Which team do you think are you more worried about between the Lakers, the Suns, and the Warriors? Because they're all 6-5, 4-6. They're all in that range and haven't looked great.
I mean, with the Warriors, I still worry about Klay Thompson. They're waiting for him to get back. I still see struggles with him, but I think the Warriors will be okay. Lakers, I mean, as a Celtics fan, I'm not supposed to care about the Lakers.
Taking that aside, taking your fandom
the Lakers
aside,
is like the same questions as last year.
Right.
You know, LeBron's not going to play 82 games. Can AD be the best player on the court 65, 70 games a year? I can't confidently say yes to that. And then the pieces they brought in, now remember, everybody said they won the offseason. Cam Reddish hasn't looked great.
Nope.
Christian Wood, Jackson Hayes, like once those guys will need to contribute more, of course, because they can't just be LeBron, Austin Reeves, and Rui. They need more. Because Austin Reeves, I feel like you know what you're going to get from him. Rui, I feel like you know what you're going to get. LeBron, you know what you're going to get. But outside of that, too many inconsistent players for me to really think that they're a legit contender. Look, last year they made the Western Conference Finals. I didn't believe in them last year either. I think they got a little lucky with certain matchups, but it's got to be the Suns for me. I did not buy into the whole, it seemed like teams were going more towards duos and maybe trios, while the Suns were like, no, we're going to buck the trend and go super team. Problem is, Beal is a high volume scorer. Booker's a high volume scorer. KD's a high volume scorer. Who's going to sacrifice? It seems like they want Bradley Beal to be the guy to sacrifice and become the point guard facilitator. I don't know if he has that in him over the course of a season to do it. Maybe certain nights he'll put up some numbers and you'll be like, oh, yeah, he can do that. But then there's going to be other nights where he's going to try to be selfish with the ball. And defensively, you got a lot of questions there. Beal's not like an all-world defender.
Nope.
Booker's okay, but he's not a great defender. And KD at this point in his career,
not anymore.
You can't ask him to do that night in and night out.
He's tall, like that's about it. And he's gonna try, but he's had too many. He's too old. He's had too many injuries.
Yeah, so it's got to be the Suns for me.
I agree. I think the Suns definitely is one that's very concerning. the Lakers, there's going to be some sort of a trade. They have all these guys that they brought in. They have D'Angelo Russell, who they overpaid. Everyone said they overpaid. They paid him what they did because him and Rui's contract matches out to like a max contract. So they can make a trade to bring someone in potentially. I'm not worried about Golden State. I think they're set up a little bit too well to lose. They have Steph Curry, who's just so hard to count against. I just don't like the way the Phoenix Suns roster is constructed. They don't have a rim protector. They don't have any elite defenders. They don't have a ball handler. And it's hard to say. And then you worry about the injuries. I know right now they have an injury to the shooting guard. His name just left my mind.
Booker?
Booker. Gosh dang, So Booker's out. He's supposed to come back soon. Durant's going to have some sort of injury. He's had one for, it feels like, the past 5 years. And same thing goes for Bradley Beal. He's had issues staying healthy. They had a really good center. They got rid of him. I just don't love the way this roster is constructed. They had a great coach and they let him go with Monty Williams. I don't like what we're seeing. I don't think they're going to be this bad. I think they're 4-6 when I last checked. They're going to be good. They're going to be probably a 4 to 5 seed, but you need defense to win in the playoffs. Like we've seen, it's very rare for a team to win a title with a bad defense. And I don't think the Suns are going to be big enough to buck that trend. They're not going to be good enough on offense to buck that trend, especially when you consider they're going to have to go through Denver. Like, how are they going to handle Jokic? Like, how is that going to happen? Yusuf Nurkic isn't going to do it. He's going to get completely owned by him if he's even healthy by the time they play in the playoffs. Like, they have no way to compete with the Denver Nuggets. So there's definitely some concern there. They'll probably ride it out, but I don't love the moves when they made them, but here we are. Have to see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. Even a Lakers team, if AD's going through one of his times where he wants to be, physical and dominant down low, how does Phoenix counteract that?
Yeah,
I don't know. I'd have questions there. Even with the Suns, it's like if there's a young athletic team that can score as well, because I feel like Phoenix has set themselves up to be a team that wins every night, like 135, 130. And
yeah, they're gonna have to score at least 130 points a game for their win.
And that's a lot to ask night in and night out to do that. So we have a couple questions here that we get to quickly before we move on to our next topic. Damien asked, do you think the Lakers are regretting letting go of Westbrook since it was working with him playing from the bench? No, because it was a terrible fit both ways. Westbrook is probably glad to be out of the Lakers in terms of LA. He's still in LA with the Clippers, even though he's probably frustrated with the whole Harden part now. But I think that was a marriage that needed to be divorced. It was
addition by subtraction for both situations. Westbrook was better outside of the Lakers. The Lakers were better once they got rid of him and were able to bring in these other players. And Austin Reeves was able to get more playing time. So agree 100%.
Damien also asks, Damien's a Bulls fan, so he said, Lakers trade us Reeves for Levine. I think you might as well start wishing for that. I don't see that happening. I think the Lakers will probably have Reeves as untouchable at this point.
He's
really
important for what they do.
Yeah, it'd have to be a certain player for you to be able to get Reeves out of LA right now, I think. And I don't think Levine's the guy to do it. And then I guess we'll end this segment with John. Who has started worse than you thought so far? The Cavs or the Bulls? It'd have to be the Cavs because I did not believe a lot in the Bulls going into the season anyway.
No, it's 100% Cleveland Cavaliers. I wasn't really high on the Bulls. I thought they were going to be pretty bad. They've had a really bad luck with their draft picks, and their trades have just been awful. The trade that they have, again, I'm terrible with names, but the big man they got from Orlando for all those draft picks, that's looking like one of the worst trades as far as the value of the draft picks that Orlando got from him that we've seen in a long time. Obviously, the Rudy trade from Utah to Minnesota is the worst, but that's a really bad trade. Cleveland still has really big aspirations. They have a really good roster. Donovan Mitchell is legit. They have, and they're 4-6. I think is last time I checked. Yeah, they're 4-6, and now there's rumors that Donovan's not going to want to resign.
I think that's a big issue there.
That's a big issue because if he's gone, granted, Donovan's not a perfect player. He has his issues. I get it. I watched him in Utah's first however many years in Utah.
Mm-hmm.
They need someone to put the ball in the basket. He can do that. If he leaves, that team's going to be in big trouble. And I'm disappointed with what Cleveland's done so far.
Yeah. I feel like because the longer the Cavs struggle, the more we're going to start hearing the Mitchell stuff.
Absolutely.
Because reportedly, it's like he wants to be in New York. That's why he won't sign in Cleveland. And I don't know if they're a team that's sitting outside of the playoffs or looking like a playing team, would the Cavs entertain trading him at the trade deadline?
If you could get a value for him and he's gone, then that's why the Jazz got rid of him. They knew that we're going to be able to re-sign him.
Yeah. So
it's hard. It's hard because you gave up a ransom. You gave up Lauri Markkanen, who's an all-star and looking like last year he was almost an all-NBA player and all those draft picks for 2 seasons, not even 2 full seasons of Donovan Mitchell. That makes you look bad, but if he walks for nothing, you look even worse. So it's a really, that's a no-win situation for Cleveland in that spot.
Ah, man. Yeah, and Cleveland was a team that I thought could have been the 3rd team in the East outside of, Boston and Milwaukee.
I want to believe in them. I still love Donovan Mitchell. They have great players. They have Mobley, who I'm a huge fan of. I've really loved his game, but they just can't get there. They just can't get to that next level.
Let's see. Damian, DeMar, and Levine and Lonzo contract can go.
No one wants Lonzo's contract.
Yes, that's a contract you can't move right now. But him talking about DeMar and Levine, those are moves that I thought they should have made. If not last season, then this offseason. They definitely need to make it at some point this year. I just don't know if Chicago's going to pull the trigger because they operate like if Lonzo comes back, we'll be fine. But you can't operate that way because Lonzo's never been healthy. No. I don't know what they're waiting for, but yeah, they need to tear it down and start new. John, Desmond Bane will be a player teams will possibly look at in a trade. Dude's balling. I think that'd be overreaction from Memphis to trade him. Yes, it looks bad now, but the first 25 games without Ja was going to look rough anyway. Probably not rough, but
right. They have to get through these 25 games. You just have to make it.
And see where you are. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. I guess we can go on to our next topic, but once again, a word from the network.
Hey guys, it's Pavel the Cat.
And Evan Rev Reynolds.
And we are Two Guys in Hockey Talk. We are here every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time to talk all things hockey. What do we talk about, Evan?
We talk KHL, AHL, ECHL, every HL hockey league you can think about, prospects, juniors, even the Professional Women's Hockey League.
Yeah, we love it. And we have a website, Two Guys in Hockey Talk. So give us a follow. We got articles on all things related to hockey, and we're writing all throughout the season. So make sure you tune in. We're also on X or Twitter. You can find me at hockey_2, and
you can follow me at RevanEv. Or you can also go to twoguysandhockeytalk.com to follow everything.
We love hearing from you guys, so make sure you tune in, comment, like, give us a follow on our Facebook and YouTube page. We love hearing from you guys, and it's a blast talking all things hockey. Right, Evan?
Hey, man, it is. So, as we say every show, in the meantime and in between time,
keep your sticks on the ice. Cheers.
Cheers.
All right. Another great show that's on the network. Make sure you check them out on Wednesdays. The break before was with Wire to Wire, also Wednesdays on the network. Check those 2 shows out. Look, we're going to get into the NFL now. We always start the NFL segment with our NFL overreactions. John already has a comment directed at me. No, I was smiling ear to ear the other night. The other team that we hate lost on a missed field goal, It's all the Bills. They lost with their missed field goal, but they had 12 men on the field, and then they made the field goal, and the Broncos beat the Bills. So yeah, it did make me smile a little. For us Patriots fans, John, we gotta enjoy the little things. To take a line from Zombieland, which is a go-to movie for me. But yeah, let's get these overreactions going. I'll let you start, Jake, because that kind of leads into the team you wanted to talk about, Buffalo.
For sure. I'll start off here with a little kind of, I don't know if it's going to be called a monologue or what, but Buffalo Bills, at this point, it's probably not even an overreaction. But I said last week my overreaction was they're going to miss the playoffs. I think that's pretty well that they're going to miss the playoffs. I don't believe in this team. They fired Ken Dorsey, who's been the offensive coordinator for like, I think, a year and a half. Last season was a full year, and then this year, mixed bag. Hasn't been great, but I just think that the Buffalo Bills are done. This iteration of the Buffalo Bills with Josh Allen, their window is shut. Their best chance was a couple years ago, and if you look back, I'll kind of paint a little story here. It's been pretty mediocre. In 2020, they went to the AFC Championship game. They went 13-3 in the regular season, and that's when they made the jump. They won their first playoff game since 1995. Just looking on Wikipedia. So they ended their playoff win drought. They went to the AFC Championship game. They played the Chiefs, and the score was like 38-24, but the Chiefs won by a much bigger margin. It felt way bigger than the final score, but the momentum was that the Bills were coming. Josh Allen was coming. The following season, they go 11-6, and they lose in the divisional round of the playoffs in what some people have said was the most exciting football game we've ever seen. They lost about first play of overtime where there were so many scores leading up to it. The NFL ended up changing the rules, so it was such a big deal. And everyone heading into last season, so a year and a half ago, the Bills were being talked about like they were the 2007 New England Patriots. Like they were being talked that they were going to go 20-0, they were going to win every game. Josh Allen was going to win the MVP. That was what I wasn't on the network, but that wasn't what I was saying. I doubt that's what Kyle was saying. But the major people you saw on Fox Sports and ESPN, they were just bought into this ridiculous notion that the Buffalo Bills were going to win it all, and they were this dynasty waiting to happen when they hadn't won anything. That season, they went what was it? They went 13-3. They had a really good season. Obviously, they had the Damar Hamlin issue that definitely affected them off the field. Yep. And it was, just I can't imagine trying to go through all of that. But they just kind of fell apart. Like they had, again, it's kind of hard to say they went 13-3, but they fell apart. But they did. And it really shows in the playoffs. You look at what they did last season in the playoffs. They played the Miami Dolphins in the first round, and they won 34-31. And that Miami Dolphins team was terrible. Absolutely terrible. This is not the Miami Dolphins team we have this year. That team was bad. Skylar Thompson was their quarterback. It was the third string quarterback. He was awful. Their defense was bad. And the head coach, it was the worst game he's ever coached. It felt like he was battling the play clock every single time. They just couldn't get the play called in. I watched that game really close because my dad's a Dolphins fan, and we thought there might be a chance that they could win. And they just felt like every time they were getting set to, getting to the line, there was 8 seconds on the play clock. Like it was his worst coached game he's ever had, and they almost lost. Like Buffalo almost threw that game away. And then we all know how the season ended for them last season. They go in, they host Cincinnati, and they just get, I mean, what's the right word for how that game went? I can't say like beat down. That's not a big enough word for it. They lost 27-10. It was snowing, and you would think that Buffalo would be ready for that kind of weather. It's not like the New Orleans Saints with Drew Brees going into a blizzard, and they're, because they're not ready. They don't play that kind of football. Right. The Buffalo Bills should be ready for a blizzard, and they just got bullied is the best way I could put it. And it looked like it wasn't just a physical beatdown, it was a mental beatdown. Like they quit. The only person that really seemed to care was Diggs. And you could tell that he was really pissed off after the game. He was tired of it because he knows that they can be better than what they are. Like their window's closed. They had their chance. They're just not. They're not who people say they are. Even heading into this season, people had Josh Allen as the second best quarterback in the league. So many people said, well, Patrick Mahomes is number one, but number two, you still have to give it to Josh Allen. Why? Like what has Josh Allen consistently proven why he's better than all these other guys? For me, I think I had him at the time fifth, and now that's probably dropping based on how he's played this season. It's just astounding. And like John says, that Dorsey was the scapegoat. He absolutely was. That there's been moments where the offense has really struggled. The offense has not played well, but like Ken Dorsey can't stop Josh Allen from turning the ball over.
Right.
That like I get that Brian Daboll kind of helped get that out of his system, but Josh Allen is 27 years old. He should be able to. He's an adult. He should be able to get that kind of out of his system. He has 11 interceptions and I think 4 fumbles this season to just set, was 19 passing touchdowns. So not the best touchdown to turnover ratio. And it just seems like they come at the worst times. A lot of moments where there should be extra turnovers. The team feels like they're in free fall. And to me, I enjoy it because it's drama and there's story to it and everything. There's lots to consume there. But I just think that this iteration of the Bills are done. Josh Allen is a good quarterback. He's not an elite quarterback, but he's still a good quarterback. I'll put it this way. When Josh Allen is at his peak, his apex, he's just as good as Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, and I'd say like that tier. Like when all three of those guys are on their A game, and Lamar. I'll put Lamar in there. When Lamar, with his running ability and if his passing's on target, sometimes there's no defense. There's no way you can defend what they can do. The problem is when Josh Allen has his bad game, his floor is terrible. We saw him lose to the Jets in week 1 when they lost Aaron Rodgers, and he had, I think it was 5 turnovers in the whole game. It's a roller coaster. Patrick Mahomes, when he has his bad game, he's still really good. Same with Jalen Hurts, same with Joe Burrow, even Lamar Jackson this season. When he has his bad games, he's still pretty good. At what point, where do you rank him? Where do you rank Josh Allen? It can't be. It's hard to say top 5 quarterback in the league because we've seen him it's a roller coaster.
Yeah. No, I agree. We've seen regression in Josh Allen when, he came into the league with a lot of questions, being, big arm kid from Wyoming.
Yep.
Yeah. And a lot of people question his accuracy and everything like that. First couple of years were rough. Then it seemed like Daboll finally got through to him and he looked like a better quarterback. This year, yes, going into it, it seemed like the year of Josh Allen. He's on the cover of Madden, ESPN, everything's loving Josh Allen, thinking he's like an MVP candidate. And now when you watch Bills games, it's like they're folding under the expectations of them being a top-tier team in the AFC. And they're just not that right now. A top-tier team doesn't lose that game last night. I get it. Denver's playing better, but you can't lose that game. And you can't lose it the way you did, being undisciplined. 12 men on the field, the pass interference, which I can excuse that a little bit because it was an underthrown deep ball. The corner got torched anyway, so he's trying to get back into the play. Judy's coming back towards him. They run into each other. That's fine. But Denver gives you a gift, misses the field goal, and you can't even have the right number of players on the field. And then it's like the very next day you fire your offensive coordinator because apparently he's the problem. Now everything's fixed, I guess. Even though John said they're 7th in offense. He's basically doing his job, but he loses his job anyway. Yep. And that with the second pick from Josh Allen, that's not on Dorsey. That was completely on Josh Allen. He throws out to the left beyond the numbers, and he floated it out there.
Yep.
Any competent secondary picks that off.
Yep.
And he's at the point in his career where he can't be making mistakes like that.
He should know better.
Yeah.
He should be better.
And I think what saves him amongst the media is he gets the Brett Favre treatment. Because Brett Favre would throw terrible interceptions, but everybody just loved Brett Favre because he's a gunslinger. Everybody loves
because Madden loved Favre. That's why everyone fell in love with him. John Madden loved it, and we all love John Madden.
Right, and I think Madden's love for Favre has people appreciate gunslingers because they're willing to take a chance. The moment doesn't seem too big for them. They'll always compete. I don't know. There's a few times where Josh Allen's going off the field. You see him just looking up in the air. He looks like a guy whose confidence has been broken, and I think he's starting to question himself and Buffalo as how good are they actually?
Yep.
And if you fire your offensive coordinator, that means it's starting to close in on McDermott. We see this all the time. McDermott's a defensive guy. I get it. But a lot of times when you have an offensive coach, if the offensive coordinator gets fired, then usually you're the next person to go. I wonder, do we see a change in defensive coordinator at some point this season? Because they're going to need another scapegoat if they start losing more games.
Yep. No, McDermott might get fired anyways. I mean, because McDermott has to be good enough to take them to the next level. That's kind of what he's there for. And like outside of Brett Favre, like what gunslinger has been like looked back at fondly? Like people don't want a gunslinger generally as their quarterback. I like Brett Favre, but it's only because when he was with the Vikings, he threw an interception to Tracy Porter in the NFC Championship game that led to my Saints going to the Super Bowl. So I mean that me just being kind of being facetious there, but like and that doesn't help that Josh Allen idolized Brett Favre. Like that was his guy, that was his hero, and that doesn't help. But you can't be a gunslinger, and if you're gonna be a gunslinger, you have to just be better. You just have to be more accurate and not choose the worst moments to have these games. And he's had moments where he's looked really bad. There was the game last year against Minnesota where he just couldn't close the game out. Remember his first playoff game against the Houston Texans where the second half they just looked like a completely different team. It's just something's not right there, and it's astounding because so many people had him as the second best quarterback in the league heading into the season, and it's mind-boggling. I think I legitimately had him fifth, and he's probably bottom of top 10. But that's also because there's been a lot of kind of poor quarterback play this year. Like to be fair to Josh, there has been some bad quarterback play, but this is just astounding that they've done it. And I just want to point out that since they beat the Dolphins 48-20, that's when like they were huge. They were on a 3-game winning streak. They lose to Jacksonville in London, and Jacksonville, despite their record, not a great team. Don't have a whole lot of marquee wins. They almost lose to the Giants. They should have lost to the Giants because of that bogus non-call on the last play of the game. And the Giants are probably the worst team in the league. They lose to the Patriots of all teams. They beat the Buccaneers, and then they lost to the Bengals and the Broncos. And the Bengals game, I know it was 24-18, but they scored late to make it look more respectable. Cincinnati was in full control of that game from pretty much the get-go. Like you knew within the first half of the first quarter, this game was over, that Cincinnati was going to win. So at this point, what do you do? Like Buffalo just doesn't have it right now, and they've lost 4 out of their last 6 games. Like that's not where you want to be at all. They're 5-5, and let's look at the playoff picture. Let's see where they would last. I don't think they'd be a wild card team this year if it ended right now.
No, because I remember they had the graphic up last night, and they are in the hunt category.
That's astounding. And I was wrong. I thought they would win 11 games this year. Like when we did our over-unders, I thought they'd win 11 games, and I was clearly wrong on that.
See some of the comments, which to go back to something John said, I'm also smiling ear to ear because I had the Bills missing the playoffs before the season started.
You did.
And I was a little worried that I might be wrong on that one, but now I'm feeling pretty good about that prediction. Pavel, what's going on? See you in here. Damien has a funny comment saying the next person the Bills fire will probably be the water boy. I mean, you gotta blame somebody. Not getting him the Gatorade fast enough. You gotta do something. He also said Josh Allen reminds me of Kirk Cousins, just slightly better. As a guy who is one of the bigger Kirk Cousins people, I don't know how I feel about that one.
I take a little offense to that, Kirk Cousins before his injury was having like a legitimate like top 5 quarterback season for like of all the quarterbacks this year. You could argue he was playing like a top 5 quarterback, especially with Justin Jefferson going down. He was playing really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd probably say, I mean, it might be crazy, but if I had a game that I needed to win, I might feel more confident in Kirk Cousins only because Josh Allen is so unpredictable, which does lead into because John said maybe it's the fact that they're taking the running away from him that we're seeing this from Josh Allen. I think that is an interesting conversation to have because, you know, it's the same thing like Baltimore supposedly was going to try to do with Lamar, and I never bought into it.
Nope.
And if you look at the Ravens games, Lamar still runs a lot because that's just who he is. Now, I will say for Buffalo, I'm one of those who believes that they had a legitimate running back for Josh Allen to just turn around and hand it off to like 20 times a game. I think they would be better off. But him just trying to be a pocket quarterback will never work. So they're going to have to try to find some balance there. And maybe that's where the whole Dorsey stuff is coming from. Maybe they feel like this is Dorsey trying to make him something he isn't. So they fired him, whatever. But, I mean, I guess we'll have to see now that Dorsey's gone. Do they all of a sudden go back to design runs for Allen, you know, getting him out in rollouts a lot more and giving him the option to run? Will that change their season? I don't know, but it is interesting to see how it goes now that Dorsey's gone. Damien asked, do you think Diggs will leave the Bills?
Yep. I think if they miss the playoffs this season and things kind of crater and they let's say they finish with like 8 or 9 wins and miss the playoffs, I think he demands a trade. I think he's too competitive and he's too good of a receiver to be like, I'm not just gonna stay here. And he's already shown, I don't want to call him a drama queen because he's not. I have a ton of respect for Diggs, but he's shown that when he's disappointed and frustrated with the way the team's playing, that it gets a lot of media attention. So he knows he can draw that in, and he knows he could probably spin it for him to get traded. And people wouldn't look at him and be like, oh, he's trying to get out of there. He's a problem. It's just, he wants to win, and they're not winning right now in Buffalo. So if they don't make the playoffs, I think he's as good as gone.
All right, so Damien clarified that his Josh Allen, Kirk Cousins comparison was about prime time. Okay.
That's fair.
Although Cousins, I think like his last couple of primetime games was showing up. I think he was starting to.
He was looking good.
He was starting to, get away from that moniker of being primetime Kirk being the bad thing.
His head coach in Minnesota helped a lot too. Again, terrible names, but like that they have a good head coach, they have a good roster there, and that makes a big difference. Mm-hmm. But also looking at the Bills' remaining schedule, just for how they could go. They host the Jets, not a given how week 1 went. And then the stretch gets really tough they go to Philly, they go to Kansas City, host the Cowboys, go to the Chargers, and then they wrap up with the with the Patriots and the Dolphins. Like there's maybe 2 easy games. The Jets and Patriots maybe are the easy games, but they've already lost to both of those teams this season. Like where are they getting 5 wins on that schedule? I don't see them getting 5 wins in there.
All right. And no, not at all. And the problem that they're facing is the AFC North right now has a lot of the wild card spots. So they're going to have to try to jump one of them. You're looking at teams in the Colts and Raiders who all of a sudden have some newfound momentum. The Broncos all of a sudden look like a decent team. We don't know what their rest of their season is going to look like. They still have to try to catch the Dolphins, which maybe they aren't looking at that anymore. But the Jets are still hanging around. The Texans are hanging around. So it's kind of like muddy water for them to try to navigate through that. If they start dropping too many games to fall too far behind, they may not have enough games to make up any ground. So, I mean, look, the Bills are going to be a story that's going to dominate probably a lot of like NFL Network and, NFL Live and ESPN because like I said, I think this is going to be the year of Josh Allen, and it's just not panned out. I mean, the only thing I might save him is maybe like Herbert in LA, because I think Herbert's another guy that NFL media wanted to kind of build up this year, and it's been a bit of a struggle. But at least there, it's like, oh, Staley's the problem. And if they fired Staley tomorrow, everybody would be like, yeah, makes sense.
There's an easy scapegoat for the Chargers. They're running out in Buffalo. And I will say this, for Buffalo, it's really hard for teams when they're on these runs where if you have multiple bad postseason losses year after year to come back from. You know, the New Orleans Saints with the tail end Drew Brees' prime, they had the NFC Championship game against the Rams. It was really debilitating. I think the year before that was the Minnesota Miracle, and the year after that was another really gut-wrenching loss to Minnesota. And they could never – it felt like it just gutted that team, and they couldn't quite get over the hump. It's the same way for Buffalo. If you look at it, they lose the AFC Championship game pretty badly. You get your heart broken in the divisional round against the Chiefs with that exciting game, but they lost and it was gut-wrenching. And then last year, barely beating the Dolphins, like I said before, and then just getting absolutely embarrassed by the Bengals. It's really hard to overcome those things. People in the locker room have a hard time with that, and it's really hard to get that morale kind of like over the hump. And so I think their window is completely shut.
Yeah, I actually put that in the network chat last night. That's something we might have to start thinking about, is that the Bills' window, as short as it was, could already be done. And it's starting to look like the divisional game loss to the Chiefs completely broke them. Because after that, all we heard about was, oh, the overtime rules aren't fair. The overtime rules. You had the lead with like 20 seconds left, and you allowed Mahomes to get down the field in 20 seconds. I don't care about overtime rules at that point. Make a stop.
Yep.
And it seems like from then, it's like, I don't know if they're using that as an excuse, that they feel like, oh, if we win that game, we probably would have won a Super Bowl by now. I don't know, but it's just like they haven't like mentally recovered from that game. And, oh, thank you. John said it was 13 seconds. I gave them way too much credit. I said 20. But for a fan base like the Bills have, if Josh Allen thinks like this type of play is going to continue and the fans are going to continue to support him, he's looking at the wrong fan base. Those Bills fans will let him know. I mean, they booed him last night, going off at halftime. Well deserved.
Yep.
And now we're going to have to see how do they react to that their next game. Because now you have to start questioning the mental toughness of
and
this
that's where you're going to call into your leaders, where you're going to call into your coaching staff, and you're going to call Josh Allen. Because if Josh Allen is strong enough mentally, he can raise everybody up. I think that's one reason why Diggs is so upset, is he's strong enough mentally to kind of see what's going on and to try and overcome it. But everyone around him is just kind of like, oh man, we should have won it. The dumb piece of metal determined our fate. If we would have got that and scored, we would have beat Cincinnati and gone to the Super Bowl, yada, yada, yada. And it's just a woe is me tale. And you can't have that in the NFL. You have to just move on. And I don't think they moved on from it. Just like the Saints never moved on from that NFC Championship game. As much as it pains me as a Saints fan that happened, you have to get over it. And you have to just move on from it.
Yeah. Or the Raiders getting over the tuck rule. Get over it.
Get over it. Exactly. That's a wonderful point.
Yeah. I love throwing that in there. Raiders fans, the fact that they still talk about that, jeez. So Damon said the Bears should fire their guy and get Dorsey now. I mean, makes perfect sense. And John said if Diggs were to go somewhere, he'd seize Houston or the Lions. To be honest with you, Diggs in Houston would be intriguing.
That gets me excited because CJ Stroud is like, I'm drooling over how great he is. And if you put Diggs on that team with the other receivers they got, oh man, I don't know if I could handle that.
Yeah. And Damien said Bills fans will put him through a table. I mean, I wouldn't doubt that there's a Bills fan that might be making up some type of doll or something of Josh Allen right now, and they actually do put that through a table.
For sure.
I mean, the overreactions kind of turned into a Bills segment. I'm here for it.
It did. It's been brewing for all year though, including last season. Like their window was 2 years ago, and a little bit. Their window really was the 13-second game. And then after that, there was kind of a little window last year. It's done. I just didn't think it would fall this short. Usually when a team's window is shut and they have an elite quarterback, they still get to the playoffs, and then that's when we kind of realize that it's shut, where it's like, okay, they're going to win 10 games, they're going to get to the playoffs, but then they're just going to lose in the first round. But this is just a completely different level we haven't seen in a long time that I can remember.
I mean, John's trying to give it all my secrets here. Tell me he knows I have a voodoo doll. Haven't forgot. Hey, man, I'm not doing any of that this year because my own team's got its own problems. Trust me, if I was into that kind of stuff, I'd be using it on the Patriots. Damien said Diggs will most likely go to Dallas to play with his brother. No, stay out of Dallas.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think the Bills are a headache, go to Dallas and be one and done in the playoffs and see how he likes that.
Right.
I mean, play with his brother, I guess, would be cool, but yeah.
Go to Houston. That's much cooler. Go to Houston.
Yeah, him and Tank Dell. I mean, yeah, sign me up for that. Houston's one of the more exciting teams to watch. I
love watching.
Any chance I get to watch them, I'll definitely watch a game of theirs because they are fun to watch. Him and Detroit would be fine as well.
Give CJ Stroud like a legit true number one. Like the guys that they have are good, but give him this elite wide receiver that can take up space for the other receivers and just let CJ just really go to work on it. That's what I want to see.
Yeah. I mean, that would be, Stephon in Houston, Trayvon in Dallas. Nice little Texas rivalry. Sure. I guess we could do maybe one quick overreaction before we go to the next segment.
Yeah, give me your overreaction. I kind of hijacked the segment.
I mean,
one or two reactions.
For me, it's I gotta look at those Baltimore Ravens. They did it once again. Can't put together a full 4-quarter game. I saw the first half, and it looked like it was going to be a laugher. They're going to.
It looked bad. It looked really bad.
It looked like they're going to destroy the Browns. It'd be a lot of the talk about, Deshaun Watson this again. He doesn't look like he's ready to play. The Browns aren't ready for the big time. And then, like we'd seen previous games this year, coming out of halftime, the Ravens look like a completely different team. I still, for the life of me, cannot figure out how a team that has a running quarterback and loves to run the ball can't hold leads.
Yep.
I don't get it. You know, somebody might have to ask John Harbaugh what that's about, but you know, they had the pick 6, which gave Cleveland all the momentum they needed, and it came down to a Justin Tucker field goal, which was like 68 yards or something like that, because we know the Ravens love relying on Justin Tucker, but there is a limit to his range, so I'm not going to really put a lot of that on him. But, you know, when I look at Baltimore, I probably said this before in here, but it's like they ran Roman out of town because it said his offense wasn't good enough. They brought in Monken. If you watch the Ravens play,
they look like last year.
Lamar runs around. If he does throw the ball, it's going to Mark Andrews over the middle. They have a new running back that they're using. I can't remember his last name now.
His name just left me. And he's electric. He's really fun to watch, and I think he's helping out a lot. But it's a running team. Their strength comes when they're able to run and keep defenses really confused for, are they going to run? Is Lamar going to pass, or is Lamar going to run? That's where their strength comes from. And if you stop the run, then they're exposed for what they are.
Yeah, and you know, I think Odell had a touchdown in the game yesterday.
He did.
Over the middle. Zay Flowers, I think a lot of his catches over the middle. And I'll keep saying it. If you're going to shrink the field to just being over the middle, yeah, you'll beat bad teams in the regular season. But good teams will figure that out and be able to counteract that. And it's also one of the reasons why, you know, everybody talking about Lamar MVP and all this. Sure, if he wins the MVP, whatever. But he's going to have to prove to me that, 1, he'll be around for a playoff game, and 2, make the plays needed to beat a Kansas City, a Cincinnati. I mean, I guess you want to throw Miami in there, although Miami hasn't really beaten a lot of good teams either. But Miami's at least a team that can put up points. And I wonder if you get into a shootout, will Lamar be able to make those plays in a situation with the playoffs?
Right.
So I get it. They're leading the AFC North. I think I said like maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago. If you look at the way that division's gone, they should have had a bigger lead.
Much bigger. They should have beat Pittsburgh by a mile in their
Yeah.
game that they had, and they lost.
Yeah, and now they've wasted the Bengals, who first like 5 weeks of the season looked like they didn't know how to play football, and they're going to completely blow it up. Yes, the Bengals lost yesterday, but the Bengals are still like a game and a half or only 2 behind them.
They're right there.
Yeah, and Pittsburgh, who a lot of people were like, oh, they're not going to go over 500 this year. They're finding ways to win, and they're hanging right there with them. And Cleveland, who's gone several weeks without Deshaun Watson, is a half game behind them. And I said before the season that I didn't see the Ravens winning that division. I think I had Cincinnati and Cleveland ahead of them. I might actually stick with that, even though they might come second. I don't know, but yeah, it's just Ravens fans will be excited for this. They'll be excited if he wins MVP. But Lamar is one of those guys who's going to have to show up in the playoffs, and I still have my doubts about them as legit contenders, even though they're like the 2 seed in the AFC right now.
Yep,
I still don't look at them as a Kansas City or Cincinnati. I'd still pick both those teams over them.
Yep, I need to see it. And an overreaction I'll have real quick in here, because I know we've kind of gone over on the other segment. And I don't really believe in this because I don't believe in the quarterback, but it's something that really surprised me last week. Is Deshaun Watson turning the corner to being back to what he was in Houston? Because the first half of that Cleveland-Baltimore game was awful. It was almost unwatchable. I think at one point he was like 2 of 12 passing, like legitimate 2 completions, 12 attempts, like could not do anything. But at one point in the second half, he was 13 to 13. And the Ravens defense is really good. So I'm going to ask you, as somebody who believed in the Browns, do you think he's back, maybe to not peak Deshaun Watson, but better than what we've seen over the past, however long he's been back? Is Deshaun Watson coming back to what he used to be?
I mean, look, trust me, as a non-Browns fan, seeing them come back in that game made me happier than maybe most, because I was afraid of coming in here, having them getting blown out by Baltimore, and have to sit here and try to figure out how to positively spin it for Cleveland, because I still believe so much in Cleveland. I love their defense. Myles Garrett is just a beast. Love watching him. I mean, the man's out there working on his crossover and getting sacks. Like, come on. Like, how could you not love that? I think what they're doing is, I think they're giving Watson a little bit more freedom to run as well. I think he scored a touchdown on like a little quarterback draw.
He did run the ball a lot more on Sunday than we've seen before. You're absolutely right.
And I think that was a sign for me that maybe he's turned the corner. Because I think before he was trying to throw it a lot, and it seemed like his timing wasn't there. But now he's starting to rely on his athleticism, which maybe being into the middle of the season, maybe he's just in better shape now and feels like his body can handle that. So hopefully that's something that keeps up. I think he has like a bit of an ankle injury, but he's already come out and said he'll be ready for next week. So I think he's starting to feel confident in his game as well, where I think he might have been questioning that earlier in the season. So sure.
I don't believe it, but he looked so much better. He looked good in the second half after looking about as bad as you could possibly be in the first half. And that we talk about the Ravens offense. That Ravens defense is legit. It is absolutely terrifying. It is scary, and they can cause wreak havoc on a lot of offenses. So props to Cleveland for making that comeback and getting the win.
Mm-hmm. All right, so go these 2 comments, and we'll go to the next segment. So Damon said he feels the same about the Lions. They're playing good, but I don't think they'll do it in the playoffs. I think the Lions, it's still a process, but yeah, they're definitely making the steps. John said a team that's slowly being quiet is the Seahawks. Love to upset some teams. Seahawks are another team I kind of quietly am rooting for. I guess Pete Carroll, the New England connection. I like a lot of the pieces there. I'm one of those who's kind of on the Geno Smith bandwagon, even though a lot of people were questioning him as well. He had a bit of a bounce back game this weekend as well. And Damien said, I hate Watson. In my opinion, I never thought he was good. I mean, yeah, he was good in Houston, but he didn't take them far in the playoffs or win a Super Bowl. Well, Damian, there's a lot of reasons for that. A lot of those Houston teams that were around him were never going to win a Super Bowl, and he still put up big numbers.
Yep.
That's where I, like him as a player. Off the field, there's another thing. A lot of people don't like him for that, but it seems like you're talking about on the field reasons.
Sure. Real quick, before you go to the next segment, Houston Texans, are you buying that they're going to make the – right now they're the 7th seed. Are they going to hold on to it? I want it so bad. Like
I do.
The fan in me, I want Houston. I love – anytime I can see Houston on TV live, I'm watching them. I want them to make the playoffs, but that AFC is tough, and there's a lot of teams that are below them. If you look at the Cincinnati, Buffalo we've talked about, the Chargers, the Jets, the Broncos, like it's going to be tough, but do you think they can make it?
Only because I'm a big Joe Burrow guy. I would say the Bengals would probably overtake them. But like you said, I would love to see Houston, because I think I was one of the ones who said D'Amico Ryans was going to go there. That might have been on Sideline to Sideline or whatever the Thursday night show was at that point. That's why I thought he was going to go. A lot of people didn't think because of how they had treated their previous coaches. So we see that was the right decision. I was also one of those who said I would take C.J. Stroud over Bryce Young.
You and I were both on C.J. Stroud, and I'm very
we're
proud
seeing
of that
coming true. So if the Bengals fall short, I would be rooting for Houston to get that last wild card spot. And look, they could go ahead in the wild card round and get blown out. I wouldn't care. It would just be to see
It'd be so cool.
C.J. Stroud, Tank Dell, and D'Amico Ryans showing everybody that, yes, Houston was a laughingstock the past couple of years, but they're serious now. They're back to being a legitimate
legit team,
football program, if you want to steal a college term.
Yep, and their schedule isn't they host the Cardinals, Jacksonville, Broncos, Jets, Titans, Browns, Titans, Colts.
There's winnable games.
There's not a lot of tough games there, man.
Yep.
I know divisional games are tough, but there's a lot of winnable games there. And I think it'd be such a good feel-good story. And also, as far as for teams overtaking them, you do have to look at Pittsburgh or Cleveland potentially falling short. Somehow Pittsburgh, I predicted they would be a good team. They have a winning record. They don't feel like a good team. They feel like a really good defense and well-coached team. But maybe they fall short. So there's plenty of room for that to happen. But man, it'd be such a cool story to see Houston go from the number 2 overall pick to making the playoffs in 1 year. That'd be awesome.
Sijin said that he thanks me on the behalf of the Seahawks. I mean, I've said it before that, I mean, outside of the Patriots, Seahawks are a team I do watch. Houston's growing on me so much this year.
Yep.
So I don't have tunnel vision for just my team. There's other teams I do enjoy watching. John said he sees them winning 4 more games, which would get them to 9 wins. It's going to be right there in the conversation for a wild card spot.
Yep.
Do y'all see Stroud winning MVP and Offensive Rookie of the Year? Rookie of the Year, yes.
Yeah, that's a lot.
MVP would be – I feel like MVP would be something where he gets votes, but they'll just say, it's not his time yet.
I mean, there's not the only thing going in his favor is there's not a standout quarterback this year. Like I said before, a lot of quarterbacks haven't played well, but I think for him to get the MVP as a rookie, he'd have to get to like 11 wins, not just 9. And that's going to be a little bit tougher. Is he going to be in the discussion as we go to the last bits of the season as one of the top 5 MVP candidates? Yeah, he'll be in there.
I think even if he falls short of 11, if it leads to a playoff spot, that will help his argument a lot.
Oh, his argument will be there. I'm saying if he were to win it, he'd have to get 11 wins to win the award, because a lot of it is not just your stats. It's you have to be generally a double-digit win team to get that award.
That's a good point. I mean, hey, it's definitely a story we'll be talking about going forward because, like I said, we're both.
It's awesome. When I talk about Stroud, I just smile, and I see it from you too.
It's just great to see a young quarterback come in, especially a guy who some people question whether or not he could play the position.
Yep.
And he's looking like one of the better passers this season.
I mean, statistically, he's on pace to have the best rookie quarterback season of all time, statistically.
Right.
So that's pretty impressive.
All right. Before we get to, I guess, our final segment, I guess, will be your picks. Another word from the network.
Hey, this is Chris from Coffee and Sports, the morning show over on Sports Empire Network.
And this is Mo. Catch us on Northeast Streaming Sports Production, Monday through Thursday, 9 to 10 a.m.
We hope to see you there.
Hey, y'all, I'm Key.
And I'm Jory, and tune in to Hoop Dreams and Touchdown Queens every Saturday at 5 p.m. over on Sports Empire Network.
And don't forget, also watch us on Roku TV at Northeast Streaming Productions. So tune in.
All right, we're back. Let's see. Fair plus, I think Tyreek Hill will take MVP since his retirement year. I mean, if you believe that, I guess. Oh, here's an interesting one. Comeback quarterback of the year, Tua Minshew. I mean, to be honest with you, I think Tua probably has it sewn up. If he lasts all 17 games, he probably should just get it just for that reason.
Yep, I agree. And then for John's thing about Sam Howell, I forgot to mention, for overreactions, Sam Howell's the quarterback in Washington. I watched that game against Seattle. He's legit. He's leading the league in passing yards. He played against a really good pass defense and got them a game-winning drive. The defense just couldn't hold up, played really poorly, led to the field goal that led to Seattle winning. But he had that game-winning drive. His sacks have gone down week after week. He's doing much better with the pressure. And just watching him, again, I'm in their area, I'm in their market, so I've seen every game. He's the guy. That Washington has found their quarterback. If he was drafted in the first round instead of the fifth, we'd all be freaking out about him, that he's turned the corner. But because he's a fifth-round pick, he's not talked about. But he's the guy, again, leading the league in passing yards.
Yeah. So, yeah, we got our pick segment. I mean, don't worry. I just took Dylan off because he's taking time away. Not like I'm deleting him or anything like that.
You had a good week, man.
I mean, look, it was bound to happen. I've been so close so many times. And even the Chargers one, I think it was like a point or two away from going 5-0 this week. You still have a 3-game lead on me, but maybe I could get to 500 after this week. But yeah, so we both had the Panthers plus 3.5 on Thursday. Was Sunday night was Lions. How did it go?
No, Sunday night was
Jets Raiders. Sorry,
Jets Raiders. Yeah.
You had the Jets. I had the Raiders. I ended up getting that one. Then Monday night was Bills Broncos. I went on a limb, went with the Broncos. They came through for me. You had Lions as your you did well with your lock and upset. You had the Lions as your lock, Vikings as your upset. Hit on both of those. I had the Steelers as my lock, won that one, and then Chargers with my upset. Fell a little short. So
it's these primetime games that kill me, man. So many of these primetime games, I'm like, man, I would never bet this in real life.
Right. All right. Well, I mean, we both had good weeks. 4-1, 3-2. But now we got to get into the next week, though.
Let's do it.
This one for a Thursday night game is not bad. Not bad by the NFL.
It's good. It's going to be a good game.
So we got the Bengals traveling to Baltimore to face the Ravens. Burrow, Lamar, division rivals. What else could you ask for? Ravens currently a 3.5-point favorite. Like I said, we got to turn into a lightning round because we got about 15 minutes to go. How do you see this one going?
I'm going to take the Bengals for my pick, first of all. I think 3.5 is, at that point in a divisional game between two good teams, you kind of have to just take the points. Mm-hmm. I think Cincinnati, both teams lost. Both teams lost some very clutch games. I think Cincinnati is more upset that they lost their game. T. Higgins, I think, was the guy that dropped the pass that could have sealed the game. So they're feeling that a little bit. I just think I trust, like we talked about, I just trust Cincinnati a little bit more than Baltimore. They can play complete games, and they know how big this is. I think Cincinnati can ink out the win. It'll be a close game, but even then, I'm going to take the Bengals and the points, and because it's going to be a close game no matter what. It's probably going to be an ugly 26-23 type of game.
Sijin's going with the Ravens. I'm going Bengals as well. I think if the Ravens win this, it's probably like a late Tucker field goal, so it'd be a 3-point win, not the 3.5. The Bengals injuries are, I guess, an interesting part of it, but I just trust Cincinnati more than Baltimore right now. And like I said, if Baltimore does win it, it's going to be ugly, low scoring, and them like running out the clock, lining up for a Tucker field goal to win it like 20, 2017, something like that. So because of that, I'll take the Bengals in the 3.5. Damien says, y'all pick Panthers. That's cold. I mean, yeah, we suck, but we have 3 wins and Panthers have 1.
I think if I remember right, the Panthers were like a 3-point underdog or something like that, and that's what we did. It was just like, I'm
they're
going
a 3.5
give me
point
a point.
underdog. Yeah,
give me the point.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, Damien, we had to pick against your squad. We do it by the spread. So, let's see, Bengals Ravens to that quarterback sneak again like they did last season in the playoffs. LOL. Oh yeah, when Huntley took off from like the 3-yard line, trying to dive into the end zone. Okay.
Pro Bowl quarterback, man.
Such a weird play. All right, let's go to the next game. This one, look, Sunday night.
This is going to be a good game. This is going to be a good game.
Yeah. We didn't even mention it. Look, Josh Dobbs is making a fan out of me week in and week out.
I wish we had more time for the overreactions because one of them was going to be, is Josh Dobbs a legitimate starting quarterback? Because I think he is.
Yeah. He's definitely making himself some money this year. Yeah. We have the Vikings traveling to the all of a sudden better looking Broncos up in Denver. Denver's a 2.5-point favorite. Who you got in this one? Sajin's going with the Broncos. John's going with the Vikings.
This is really tough because the Broncos, I was talking about it with my dad earlier today, that the Sean Payton as kind of Russell Wilson's kind of turned things around. He's didn't start great, but he's week after week, he's looking better and better and better. And look, Monday's game was pretty ugly. It wasn't the prettiest game, but there's some stuff that's going on there. I'm going to take the Josh Dobbs hype. Josh Dobbs hype. I think his ability to run with the football, the playmakers that they have, especially Addison, is just fantastic. I think that they can at least cover. They probably get the win. They looked really good against the Saints, and the Saints have a really good defense. They still put up a ton of points. I think this is no moments it's going to be too big for him is the thing. If he can go in without knowing the playbook or even the players' names, he can definitely handle a Sunday night game. And this is, 2 weeks ago, this was going to be a dumpster fire of a game. But this is going to be really exciting. But I'm going to take Minnesota for the upset.
Okay. Look, for me, this is tough because, like I said, Dobbs is making a fan out of me. I've been one of those who's been waiting for Russ and have hated seeing what's gone on with him. I think what is intriguing with Russ is we saw against Buffalo, I feel like we started to see him run a little bit more.
Yep.
And I think that's working in his favor. I'm going to take the Broncos here.
Okay.
But trust me, if the Vikings were to pull this one off, I wouldn't be mad because, one, I picked the Vikings to win the division, and the fact that Dobbs has them playing like they could possibly still do it, I just want my pick to be right. But yeah, I just want Russ to kind of save face, kind of quiet a lot of the talk about him being washed or cooked.
Yep.
If he puts together some wins, we'll have to be a little bit more quiet about that. So I'll take the Broncos here.
All right.
We will differ on this one. I mean, this one's the marquee Monday night.
Man.
Super Bowl rematch. You got Eagles going to Kansas City and Arrowhead facing I think it's still called Arrowhead, to face the Chiefs.
Yeah, still Arrowhead.
Okay, good. Some of these
it's terrible.
long-lasting places, they change their name eventually, but Arrowhead, okay. Chiefs are a 3-point favorite. So how do we see this one going? The Super Bowl rematch.
This game is going to be great. Like some Monday Night Football games, they aren't the best. They're hard to stay up for, especially if you're like us, live on the East Coast, and the game doesn't start till 8:30. It's kind of tough to make it through a kind of a slog of a game. This isn't the case. Both teams are also coming off of a bye, so they're both going to be equally rested.
Mm-hmm.
We know, man, this is tough because Andy Reid's record off of a bye is pristine.
Incredible. Yes.
It's pristine. But my concern for Kansas City is what it's been all year is their receivers. Like, they have a good defense. They can run the ball really well. They have the best player in the league, but the receivers just haven't been able to create separation. They've been dropping a lot of balls, running wrong routes. All you have to do is take away Travis Kelce, and the offense just seems to shut down. And they don't seem to be as fast as they've historically been. Philly, like, neither of these teams have looked as great as we've expected, which has been kind of odd. Neither team is, despite them having, I think, the two best records in they're each the one seed in their conference. Neither of them have impressed based off of the standards that they would go. And because of that, I'm going to take the Eagles for the upset. Give me the points. It's probably going to be a close game. And kind of like what I mentioned last week with the Philadelphia Eagles, or like the kind of what happened to the Patriots when the peak of their dynasty, where they don't make mistakes to lose games and teams around them make mistakes at the worst possible moment that cost them a game. I think something like that might happen to it. I'm torn here. I'm going to take the Eagles, but it's like a 51-49% kind of split, but give me the Eagles for the upset.
I'm there with you. I'm taking the Eagles +3. I do agree with you as well. Both teams haven't, I guess, lived up to the expectations that we had coming off of the Super Bowl last year.
Yep.
You know, for the Chiefs, it's their offense that you worry about and the weapons around Kelce. Kelce, we know, you know, he's still a top tier tight end, but you know, if Kelce's being doubled, like, who does Mahomes trust to throw to? Will Kansas City try to run the ball more in this one to take some pressure off him? I don't know.
But Philly's run defense is really good, at least up the middle. You can only run onto the edges from them.
Right. And then with the Eagles, it's the questions has been over the middle in the passing game. Yep. Their defense has been a little suspect. So it could be a game where Kelce has like 10, 12 catches, but they're not able to score a lot because, you know, once it gets in the red zone and everything is tighter, maybe he can't find those spaces down the middle. So I'm taking the Eagles here. I'm expecting it to be a great game. I'd be surprised if either one blows out the other one by like 10 or something like that. It should be a one-possession type game.
Yep.
But I'm going to give it to the Eagles in this one.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game either. I'd be surprised if either team cracks 35. It's going to be pretty low-scoring game, I would think.
I mean, Damien and Sajin are asking. Well, Damien said Swift will be at the game and curse KC, and Sajin's like, wait, will Tay-Tay be at the game?
To be fair, the games where
Tay-Tay, it's kind of hilarious.
Where Swift shows up, Kelce plays better when she's in the audience. It's so absurd, their stats about that he has better games when she's in attendance. I mean, just shows what you can do with statistics, right?
Right. The life of a celebrity. Do y'all see Taylor Swift wear split jerseys? Oh, she is from Philly and Kelsey's her man. Well, I mean, she probably will. If she's there, I definitely think she... Well, actually, no. No, yeah, she'll have to do a split jersey. She's from Philly, and yes, her man is in Kansas City. What she might do is, because a lot of parents and family will do the split down the middle, she might do Travis on the front and maybe the Philly one on the back. That'd be my prediction, I guess.
I could see that.
Not that anybody cares. I got like 5 minutes here, so I'm actually doing good time because now we're on our locks and upsets of the week. Oh, the teams on the bye, I screwed up that part. Some of those teams shouldn't be there. But,
you're good.
So yeah, don't worry about that part. But the games are correct. We have some interesting lines. A couple of double-digit ones. Niners and Bucks 10.5. Dolphins Raiders 11.5. Cowboys Panthers 10.5. And then a couple of them that are like right around double digits. Lions Bears 9.5. Commanders Giants 9.5. So not a lot of close games necessarily. I mean, Rams Seahawks is a 1 point spread that's pretty good, and Chargers Packers at 3. So, who do you have for your upset and lock of the week?
Man, there's a lot of ugly ones in here. For my lock, I'm gonna take. I'm going to take Dallas over Carolina as my lock.
Mm-hmm.
I think Dallas knows that they have to be on this. They have a really easy schedule the next couple of weeks, including this past week. They need to get the momentum. They need to get everything going. And Dak's been playing pretty well. And also, like the Cowboys are kind of, I don't want to say a negative term, but they're kind of bullies. They beat up on the bad teams. They do really well against the bad teams. Same thing with Miami. When they play bad teams, they look really great. So that's my lock for the week. For my upset, man, part of me, I'm thinking about that Giants Commanders 9.5. I know the Giants are absolutely terrible, but the Giants beat the Commanders earlier this year. 9.5 points is a ton, but I'm going to go with the Jets. They're at least going to cover over the Bills. I'm going to go. I think John in chat said that. I'm going to go with the Jets as my upset of the week.
Okay, those aren't bad ones. Like you said, yeah, John's calling the Jets one. All right, so for me,
that Titans Jags upset is looking pretty tempting though.
That one is interesting because the AFC South is weird like that.
Yep.
Let's see, lock. I'm gonna go. I mean, the Lions on 9.5, but they are at home. The Lions play really good at home,
and the Bears are bad. The Bears are so bad.
So I'll take the Lions minus 9.5.
That's a good one.
And then my upset, I'm gonna go with. I mean, Damien. Yeah, sorry, I'm actually picking against your squad again. Damien's saying Bears upset. John says watch the Bucks beat the Niners. That would be a huge upset. That would be.
That would.
Let's see. Upset. Let's go. I mean, the Rams one's kind of interesting, but
Green Bay Chargers is kind of interesting too for an upset. Neither because the Chargers have not looked good at all.
True, but I do like the Chargers on that one. I might have to go the Titans plus 6.5 to cover.
They always play each other really tough.
Yeah.
Jaguars came off a really, really bad game. That's one I was looking really hard at.
Yeah, it's just the way of the AFC South.
Yep.
The games are much closer than you think, and yeah.
Makes no sense.
John said Steelers over the Browns. Come on, take a leap of faith.
It's tempting.
It is, because the Steelers are doing well. I'm just too high on.
Are the Steelers doing actually well, or are they just winning games somehow? Like, I'm still not convinced.
That's what they're doing. They're winning games somehow, but that's fine because that kind of fits with Pittsburgh.
Yep.
Blue collar, hardworking, and it's a team that they fight for every inch. They're not, look. It's not the prettiest
and they don't
brand
lose
of
your game. Yep, they don't lose games.
And even though, Steelers fans can't stand Matt Canada, if they keep winning, he gets to keep a job.
Absolutely.
Now, Damien said the Raiders. I mean,
the Raiders are
playing better, yes. And an 11.5 is a pretty big spread for the Dolphins. That was one I was looking at, but I don't know if I was confident in that one. But that is a good one. So
let's see what the Raiders can do against a legit team, like an actual team.
Right.
As opposed to the past two teams they played.
So, Damien, if the Raiders pull that off, we will remember.
We'll give you credit.
Yes, we'll definitely do that. All right. I mean, that's all we got.
That's our show.
Perfect timing as well. So, yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the episode. If you did, follow us on Facebook. If you're over on YouTube, make sure to hit the subscribe button.
Tell your friends.
Yes, definitely. Share it out because, as you can tell, we have a lot of fun on here. Definitely appreciate all of you in the chat. We are here every Tuesday, 7 o'clock, 7 to 9. If you miss us or want to watch us again, you can check us out on Northeast Streaming Sports Production over on Roku TV, Wednesdays at 11 a.m. to 1. If you, like I said, you want to give us a little support over there as well. Saijin, appreciate that. So, I mean, Jake, you didn't have anything before we get out of here?
No, just great episode. Thanks for the audience chat. It was super great. Makes the show way better. And just enjoy football while it lasts. It's going to be over before we know it.
Yeah, that's so true. So, yeah, so myself and Jake, this is the big three. We're out of here. Enjoy the rest of your night, and we will see you next week.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.